welcome to our first episode of Ancienttalk. I'm your host, Louisiana, and from this day forward, we will bring you the best and brightest, biggest and baddest figures in ancient world history. Every episode, we will invite at least one guest from thousands of years ago to talk with us. Our audience, consisting of both ancient and modern people, will be given the opportunity to ask our guests anything. Through this discussion, we hope to provide you, the viewers, with a better understanding of the history that we all share. Our guests for tonight come from two different places, two different eras, and two different experiences. Through Ancienttalk, they have been able to contact each other. Both rulers have since requested that they appeared on television here to debate who is the better ruler. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest, First Emperor Qin Shi Huang and Augustus of Rome. Your Majesties.
Stop calling me Your Majesty. I'm not an emperor. I'm just the ruler of my country.
My apologies, sir. How about we kick off this debate by giving each ruler an opportunity to deliver an opening statement. Let's start with you, Majesty.
Thank you. As you all know, I am the August Emperor, unifier of all under heaven, son of heaven, and the supreme August on high. As king and emperor, I have faced many challenges to my authority. People try to cheat me. People try to assassinate me. But they and their kindred have been exterminated to the degree. I stand today as ruler of my subjects, who are happy to live under one system of writing, one system of measurement, one school of thought, and most importantly, one ruler. The ideal ruler is one who makes full use of his power for the benefit of the state, who restores stability and leads a nation in one mind. I accomplish all of this by accommodating aliens, giving them an opportunity to contribute to my kingdom at the expense of the other states. I remove leeches like Liu Buwei and Lao Ai, who wanted nothing but power from being in my presence. I restore stability to everything under heaven by bringing all other states under my control. And I strengthen that stability by removing pernicious thoughts. If I'm not the ideal ruler, I don't know who else can be. Thank you.
Augustus?
My birth name is Gaius Octavius, but my full name is Imperator Caesar Divi Filius Augustus, or Augustus for short. I'm not just the first emperor of Rome, but also the stabilizer of Rome and benefactor of the Roman people. I'm not going to stand here and brag about my accomplishments, because the record speaks for itself. I fought in multiple wars to save my country from traitors who wanted to spill Roman blood for political gain. After restoring stability to Rome, I invested in the country's infrastructure, expanded the privileges of citizens, accommodated people of all classes in times of trouble, and increased civic participation. For these reasons, my reign is not only supported by the gods, but by the people, who call me father of my country. My philosophy on ideal governance is both comprehensive and straightforward. The ideal ruler is someone who prioritizes law and order. For no empire can coexist with criminals and rebels. The ideal ruler does not indulge in extravagance. He indulges in people. The ideal ruler founds a city of bricks and leaves it in a city of marble. Hopefully, from this debate, we can determine who is the most effective as maintaining order, benefiting the people, and building a nation from ground up.
Now that both rulers have delivered their opening statements, let's open our debates to our audience. Let's go first to Sima Qian, who is a renowned historian who studies many figures in Chinese history, including Qin. Sima Qian, what's your question?
Thank you, Your Majesty. You call yourself the son of the Supreme August on high. If I recall correctly, you're referring to King Zhuangxiang. However, I have discovered in my research that a merchant by the name of Liu Buwei had sex with a concubine, who then gave birth to you. What does this say about your legitimacy, as well as your claim as a better ruler?
Are you insinuating that I am the son of Lu Bue?
Precisely.
That is a lie. How can I, with a clear mandate from heaven to rule over everything, be the son of an outsider? I mean, I've never liked Lu Bue. It was he who brought a fake official, Lao Ai, into my court, who later tried to overthrow me. I had Lao Ai executed and I expelled Lu. And eventually Lu took his own life. This was a lowly, power-hungry, and opportunistic person. How could he be involved in the birth of the Son of Heaven, a ruler who founded a dynasty that will last 10,000 generations?
I find it surprising that you are so antagonistic to your own father, for it is he who helped King Zhuangxiang to come to power, which put you in a position to succeed him.
But if Lu Bue is my father, why wasn't he king at all? Everyone knows that a father passes power to his son, right? So if Lu was never king, that means I would never become king. The Supreme August on high would pass the throne to a legitimate ruler, someone else, if I wasn't the legitimate child. Everything occurs according to the will of heaven. That heaven gave me a mandate to rule everything shows that I am a legitimate ruler, and therefore I am a legitimate child of a legitimate ruler.
Let's move on to our next question from Master Lu, who once served Qin Shi Huang in his search for immortality. Master Lu?
First Emperor, you claim yourself to be the better ruler. How can you claim to be a better ruler if you constantly ignore the advice of your advisors, execute those with whom you disagree, and respond to the fear of your advisors with your own arrogance? You even go as far as to weigh the documents that enter your palace so that you can punish a certain number of people day in and day out. Is this what good leaders do?
The hypocrisy coming from the mouth of this little man astounds me. You accuse me of not fulfilling my duties as a ruler, and yet it is you who fled from me, refusing to carry out your duty as my servant. I trusted you and Master Ho with finding immortality, but instead you fled. How is anyone supposed to take your words seriously, you traitor? You accuse me of not listening to my advisors, but I listened to Chief Minister Li Si when he recommended that I not expel any aliens from my country, lest I benefit my enemies abroad. And I listened to him again when he said that all records of the historians, besides those of the Qin, should be burned to preserve national unity. You accuse me of executing those who disagree with me, despite the fact that it is they, not me, who betrayed me first by trying to kill me or encourage others to kill me. And what is wrong with weighing documents? A good ruler is supposed to be omnipresent. He is the final arbitrator of all affairs under heaven. For what reason do you confuse competency with tyranny other than to exhibit your own ignorance? You are no longer my servant, but I don't want you back. For no ruler would tolerate a little man in his presence. May you perish along with 18 generations of your descendants.
I want to ask a question concerning the treatment of your people. It's pretty clear that you were never on good terms with the idea of pluralism. You mentioned how you burned all copies and records of historian apart from those of Qin. You also ordered all copies of the songs or documents to be burned, and that those who continue to possess those works ought to be executed along with their families. Don't you think of that as tyrannical by any chance?
I think it helps to remember why there was so much bloodshed around the world before I came along. There were many states, each with its own ruler, and with many states came competing interests. And at the heart of those competing interests were competing ideas. People thought differently and acted according to how they thought. So there are always going to be some people who will kill or be killed to satisfy their vision of the world. So even after I had bought all the states under my control, I realized that genuine unification is not possible. So long as people in various places had different ideas of who they were or how their country should be run. The sword can wipe out an enemy's physical body, but it cannot simultaneously wipe out the dangerous ideas that justify the enemy's very existence. That is why it is very important that we root out these different ideas, and you cannot do that by merely killing people who believe in those ideas. You need to root out the very source of those ideas, and we have to begin with the books.
I would like to give Augustus a chance to answer some questions though. Let's begin with Suetonius, the private secretary of the Emperor Hadrian, who had access to the imperial archives and compiled what's perhaps the most detailed history of Rome's absolute rulers. Suetonius?
Thank you. Caesar, the records show that during your reign you harbored a hostile attitude to foreigners. During food shortages, you would expel foreigners and slaves to relieve the food supply. You did not pay respect for the Egyptian gods, and you praised your grandson, Gaius, for not praying at Jerusalem. How does your professed care for people and your hostility towards foreigners add up?
I am the leader of Rome. My people are the people of Rome. My first priority is the welfare of my people, not useless people who are neither born nor raised in the city. It is because I understand the value of the Roman people that I refuse to let themselves be tainted with foreign blood. Furthermore, it only makes sense that during times of economic crisis, my policies are supposed to help out the useful segments of Roman society before anyone else. That is why I expelled most foreigners and slaves from the city when the food supply was under stress. I emphasize most foreigners because I did keep physicians and teachers who are useful to our society. The first beneficiaries of any policy in Rome ought to be the most important people of the Roman stock. I prefer religions that are well established because these religions are more likely to instill correct moral values in our people than newer faiths. For example, I settled a dispute involving Greek religion in private when it was discovered that the evidence contained Greek religious secrets. Greek religion, unlike Egyptian or Jewish religion, it is well established and very similar to what we worship at Rome. That is why I prefer it over other foreign religions, but I am not hostile to all foreign religions.
We now turn to Mark Antonius, who once ruled alongside Augustus and fought several civil wars with him.
Help me.
Gaius Octavius, actions speak louder than words, and while your words claim that you are a better ruler, your actions claim otherwise.
What else do I expect to hear from someone whom I roasted in battle, couldn't handle it, and took his own?
Please let Mark speak.
You only ruled for your own benefit. I once warned that you were an obstacle to the Roman Republic, and you responded by promising to restore the Republic. Yet here you are, standing for all of us an absolute ruler, a dictator. If you turned your back on their promise to restore the Republic, how can the people trust you to keep your other promises?
Let me go back to what I had said earlier, that the ideal ruler prioritizes law and order. I spent the early years of my political and military career fighting those who threatened to tear Rome apart. First Brutus and Cassius, then you. To me, the security of the country is paramount. Though I considered restoring the Republic, I soon realized that Rome cannot exist without a strong, functioning government. I never wanted to obtain godlike status. I rejected a temple dedicated to myself at Rome, and I begged others not to establish a dictatorship with myself at its head. But it is in the will of the people and the best interests of Rome that there be a strong ruler, so that incidents similar to what happened to Julius Caesar would not happen again.
Our final question goes to Julia, Augustus' daughter.
Father, they say if you cannot govern your own house, then you cannot govern the country. You divorced twice, banished me, banished your own granddaughter, and disowned your only surviving grandchild. Outside of the public view, you were a gambler. What's more, you said in your opening statement that you indulge in people, which is actually true because you are a womanizer. How do people see you
Human
as a
scum!
better...
You, who engage in adultery and treason, now have the audacity of accusing me of being a bad person. That is why I banished you, and Agrippa Posthumus too, for he was also involved in all sorts of vulgar activities. How can you blame me for being surrounded by adulterers like you? My personal life did not get in the way with my ability to rule. We should not evaluate a ruler by his private life, but his accomplishments. And as I said, I restored order to Rome, turned Rome into a city of marble, and helped out my people in times of adversity. Because of that, posterity will remember me, but they're never going to remember my lecherous daughter, or hopefully they'll not.
Augustus, with all due respect, are you admitting that you have committed adultery, which is what you are accusing Julia of?
Well, I can't say I only went to bed with one person all my life. If you ask my friends, they'll tell you everything I do is in the best interests of the state. Everything I do is strategic. If I ever wanted to know what my enemies were up to, I would just ask their wives. Sometimes those conversations happen in the bedroom, but rulers should exploit every opportunity to keep the peace. And if that opportunity arises in private life, then so be it.
Augustus, Suetonius once wrote that you participate in something called the Feast of 12 Gods, where you made merry at a table laid for gross debauchery. This fest also took place during a food shortage, and when the people of Rome heard about it, they accused you of indulging in excess pleasure at their expense. Is this the same Augustus who professes to work for the welfare of the Roman people?
I don't know what you're talking about. I think the allegation in question originates from a letter by Mark Antony.
But this isn't coming from Mark Antony's. This is coming from a lampoons from your subjects.
Well, we don't know who made that poem. It could have been Mark Antony. It could have been Julia. We don't know. But if I'm really this obscene person, how do critics explain the fact that I destroyed all golden dinner services and took only a cup after capturing Alexandria, when I could have taken everything? And no one can deny that I distributed war booty to the citizens of Rome and supplied grain to people of all classes during food shortages, sometimes for free. Rarely do you see leaders performing those services to their people.
We will now enter the cross-examination phase of our episode. Each ruler will have an opportunity to ask each other one question. Augustus, you may begin.
Your Majesty, before I ask my question, would you agree that the ideal ruler should build his country?
Definitely.
So if you claim to be the better ruler among the two of us, what did you build? From what we've heard from tonight's debate, it seems like you didn't build. Instead, you destroyed. You destroyed entire states, you destroyed books, you destroyed people. And if I recall correctly, you destroyed all the weapons in your empire and turned them into statues. What did you build? And how can you rule on destruction?
Caesar, you are forgetting that I built the first empire spanning across all under heaven, something the 5 emperors were unable to do. Like you revealed in your own question, I built 12 statues in Xianyang from the weapons collected from the states. I'm sure a ruler like you, who values law and order, would support such a move because weapons only give the black-headed people an incentive to commit crimes or even wage rebellion. Besides building an empire and statues, I also built 270 palaces within a radius of 200 li from Xianyang, and I connected the border walls. Those are substantial feats compared to those of someone who destroyed his whole family and is left with a spoiled son-in-law.
First Emperor Qin Shi Huang, you may ask a question.
You mentioned several times that you value law, order, and stability. But if that is true, then why do you encourage dissent? You vetoed a law that banned free speech in wills, call out random people in debates who may express different ideas, and didn't punish anyone who spoke ill of you. How can you want your empire to stay together whilst allowing ideas that may overthrow you to spread?
I think, Your Majesty, that this is where our philosophies disagree. Yes, I do want Rome to be free of criminals, rebels, and other people of ill intent, but you cannot silence your way to stability. Instead, you must set up a strong, competent government that is capable of preventing people from coming to blows with each other, while acknowledging that people sometimes disagree with their rulers and will communicate their disagreement. All my reign, I have tolerated dissenters, and I was never overthrown, so I think I'm doing something right.
We're almost out of time, so let me ask one final question. How would you like to be perceived by your children or grandchildren?
I think we've well established who is the better ruler tonight. Is it the ruler who unified all under heaven, suppressed all conspiracies, enforced the laws, and brought everything into harmony? Or the ruler whose actions did not match his words, committed adultery, and robbed his family? There's clearly a lot of skeletons in Caesar's closet. And even before we reveal them all, I think posterity has already made up its mind that I, the Son of Heaven, am the better ruler. Thank you.
With all due respect, the man with a lot of skeletons and terracotta in his tomb is accusing me of being an inferior ruler. But let not insults stifle this forum tonight. The ideal ruler is someone who values law and order. I brought law and order by ending the civil wars. The ideal ruler builds his country. I built Rome and left it better than it was when my political career began. The ideal leader cares for his people, and it is the people who named me father of my country. That is what I want posterity to remember me for.
With that, we conclude this episode of Ancient Talk. I would like to thank both rulers, First Emperor Qing, Augustus, and our guest for joining with us tonight. Next week, we will have an exclusive launch-here chat with Krishna and Vishnu, which is going to be very interesting because I cannot tell them two apart. Have a good night, everyone.